Hi, my name's Sean McLaughlin, and I'm the CEO of Alaska Gear Company. I'm speaking to you from the rubber side of our manufacturing floor, which we're going to give you a little tour of in this video. The story today is we want to give you a recap of our initial launch of the Bunny Boot, which we launched in October of 2024 and have been selling ever since. We're going to give you a sense of how it went in the first year, what we found out and determined about the boot, and then we're going to also show you some of the things we're doing for the upcoming season, the 2025 season. A lot's happened since we originally launched this boot. As a recap, we spent about almost 3 years in development of this boot. We decided to make this boot because we recognized there were things we knew about this boot and it wasn't in production. Specifically, we know how to work with rubber here. We know how to do heavy engineering here. And we know about cold feet because we're in Alaska. So we felt like this was a product that we could tackle and make some hay with in the market. And we've had a great success. The boot has now been out there not quite a year, but call it 10 months or so. And we've gotten a lot of feedback from the field, and we want to share that with all of you. We hope this video helps you understand exactly what the boot's capable of, strengths, weaknesses. We're going to show it all to you today, and we hope that we can be the main source for your information on this boot, as opposed to some troll on the internet who thinks they know what's going on and they've never worked with rubber and they've never built a boot company, and frankly probably never built any company at all. So we're going to try to be pretty open because that's how we are in everything that we do in this company, especially in our aviation products. So let's go. So first off, Bunny Boot. In our first season, we sold about 5,000 pairs of this Bunny Boot. That was pretty much on target with what we thought we'd sell in the first year. They went to all 50 states, and we were surprised by that, even Hawaii. The majority of the boots were sold to people here in Alaska, with a decent contingent in northern Canada as well. The boot, we basically, let me get into some of the things we found in the first year of exercising. What we have is we have information that comes back. We have testers that we've given certain boots to and certain designs to out in the field that provide us feedback. And then we also have the warranties that come back from the first year. We're going to share that information with you today. So in the first year so far, and the warranty on the boots goes 1 year, so we might see some more information before it's up. But in the first year, we ran about a 2% warranty rate on this boot. And that breaks up into kind of two categories. 1%, which are what I would call mechanical failures of the boot, and 1% were people who complained about still having cold feet with it. So let me break that down for you. Again, this is a size 14 of the boot that we released. Overall, industry-wise, and in terms of our projections, that was a pretty good number, especially for our first year making the boot. So let me go through some of the things we found in the first year. The first most common issue that we got in warranties was literally this pull tab being yanked off, and it depended, usually the higher the boot size, the more the people that were pulling on their boot and this part pulled off. So we had to replace a bunch of boots because this just ripped off when people were using it. The second most common one was the eyelets pulling out, and that was people really cranking down on the laces. And this eyelet is set in rubber, and in a lot of cases this eyelet would pull free. The third most common is that people who were using it and hiking it, or using it kind of really in a commercial setting, who are really flexing and moving around in the boot a lot, these nylon and there's Kevlar embedded in these laces. These laces would chew through the rubber on the top of the tongue here, just from repeated action on the rubber, and we never really considered that in the design phase as a potential flaw. But that's another one. That was probably the third most common thing. The other thing that happened is that this eyelet strip here, a few people, this would tear right at this corner here. And we're not really sure why that is, but we actually did a mid-course run correction on that with the factory. So we haven't seen it since, but there were a few of those as well. And the other one kind of relates to the cold feet too, we think, but there was, in the production of this boot, it's a pretty complex boot to make, and I'm just going to reiterate. This is the inside of that boot, the one you're looking at right here. So this is our Bunny Boot, and this is the original Bunny Boot. And again, there's a lot of complexity in a Bunny Boot, but it's not rocket science. It's a lot of the magic is how you build this boot repeatably, repeatably without blemishes or defects. And this one's from 1986. So this was the original Bunny Boot. This is the main Bunny Boot. And one of the big challenges in the Bunny Boot manufacturing is basically the how this handles, this crossover across the top of your foot handles across the two waterproof compartments and over the gusset that goes up your ankle and allows you to tighten the shoe against your ankle. And in this area right here, I think there was a high level of risk to an error in manufacturing, in the sense that all these layers had to be dovetailed in, the rubber had to be put down, it had to go through the vulcanization process, and nothing can move in that process. And we've cut open some boots and figured out that some did. And that links back into the cold foot issue, because we think a certain number of people who had cold feet, it was because one of these pieces of insulation moved. And you can't tell it. Once the product is built and delivered to us like this, you really can't tell that it has that problem potentially. So let me break that down for you. So warranties, 5,000 sold. We had about 100 warranties that came in. About 50 of those were some sort of mechanical defect in the boot. Again, some of them actually already fixed in the first year as we went through the factory runs. Actually all of them really were in some way, except for the lace one. But that's about 50 sets coming back for things like that. And then the other 50 were people complaining that, they bought the boot and they had cold feet still, which, when you get into cold feet analysis, very, very complex science. What I like to say to people is, you can make a boot that's infinitely warm and you can't move in it, right? If you can imagine somebody's foot just encased in R1000 amounts of insulation. And, so there's always a fine line between weight of a boot and warmth. You got to kind of pick that magic number in there, and that's what we try to do with this boot. Again, taking a lot of license from the original Bunny boot. And the other analogy I like to say is that if you put this boot on a dead person, the dead person's foot's still going to freeze. The boot does require, a certain amount of thermal output from your foot to operate. So what we think is more important about the whole design is that we are adhering to the original Bunny boot design magic, which was the VBX, the vapor barrier side of the boot, and then beyond that, trying to make a good fitting boot that you can wear every day. And a lot of that comes into the waterproofing of the boot, which amazingly no complications associated with the waterproofing of the boot, which we were pretty happy about. There were a couple cases that we put into the cold foot case, which are pilots wearing them to altitude and saying that the boot started to crunch down on their foot as the air started to expand in the air pockets inside. But I think we had maybe 2 of those, and we could not repeat that situation. And we did test for that, but we're cognizant that was an issue that was experienced by at least 2 people out there. But we don't really have an answer for that one. So later in this video, we're going to show you what we did with some of these things for Generation 2 boot, but we still believe that this is a pretty damn good Bunny boot, and we're going to continue to sell this model here for the 2020-25 season. I should also say that out of that 2% warranty, there are about 3 people who returned the boots saying they're made in China and I don't want them. And we've been pretty vocal about the fact that these aren't made in our factory, although we're going to tell you more about that here in a minute. But we received those boots back and we returned their money if they didn't want it. But every boot comes a little tag saying it's made in China. And that's the factory that we worked with to make this boot. I guess on that point, I'm just going to reiterate, there is not a US factory that can make this boot, not yet. We canvassed everybody in the world that still makes a rubber boot like this and found the best factory we could work with, and they couldn't have been better partners for us. Our team visited them. They're actually coming up here to visit us here pretty soon. And we're pretty proud of I know you guys, a lot of you might not want a Chinese made boot, but the truth is they've been a great partner for us in building this boot. All right, so 5,000 sold, 2% warranties, 1% mechanical, 1% cold feet. With that, we're going to move on to the next part of the video.